This is the recipe for our family's carrot cake. However, because I'm on a diet, I've been told that the most I'm allowed to make is half of a carrot cake. So I need to cut this recipe in half entirely, and that includes even the pan. The original recipe calls for a 9 by 13 inch pan, giving us a total surface area of 117 inches. However, our new diet recipe calls for half the ingredients, so we need a smaller pan. Enter the square pan. At 8 by 8 inches, it has a surface area of 64 inches, which, when compared to the original pan, is just around half the size. So it should be perfect for our recipe. First, we start with the oil, 180 milliliters to be precise. Now, most cake recipes call for, well, just oil. Today I happen to have an abundance of olive oil, so that's what I used. Don't tell anyone, they'll never know the difference. Up next is 1 cup of sugar. Now, while technically it's not a liquid, we include sugar with the liquid ingredients because we want the sugar to tie up the water in the liquid to make it unavailable for gluten production when we eventually add the flour. Otherwise, we would have a chewier cake, and chewy is not good for cakes. And finally, for the last of our wet ingredients, we add 2 large eggs. The eggs help create structure and stability within the batter. Without the eggs, our cake would be delicate to ice and would probably end up on the crumbly side. It would also probably be a little flatter since the proteins in the eggs, in combination with the flour, help set up the protein structure in the cake. For our dry ingredients, we start off with a cup of flour. Measuring by weight is best. Too much flour and your cake will be dry and crumbly. We follow that up with a teaspoon each of baking soda and baking powder. We need both to balance the acidity of our cake and provide leavening. Finally, we finish off the dry ingredients by sprinkling in about a teaspoon of cinnamon, along with half a teaspoon of salt. We mix these together to combine, and now they are ready to be added to our wet ingredients. It's important not to overmix your batter. If you do, the gluten in your flour can start to react with the liquid part of the batter, resulting in a dense, chewy texture. You just want to stir gently, by hand, enough to wet all of the flour, and then set it aside. But don't forget to fold in the carrots. After all, how are you going to be able to convince your friends, family, loved ones that this cake is a health food if you don't add in the only healthy ingredient? The oven's finished preheating, so it's time for our cake to go in. Now, the original recipe called for a baking time of 45 minutes, but my typed up version included a note for smaller cakes to bake for only 30 minutes. If you suspect your oven cooks faster, you should check it sooner. For our icing, we're going to start with half of a stick of butter. We'll also need 4 ounces of cream cheese, or half of a brick. I'm going to be using a stand mixer. It's just easier that way. We need to let our butter and cream cheese soften, but not before adding our secret ingredient, vanilla bean paste. To give a little bit of a crunchy texture to the icing, I'm chopping up some walnuts. You could also use pecans. Don't use a blender for this part or you'll turn it into powder. And now for the best part, to ice the cake. Hope you like the icing because there's a lot of it. Okay. The key to icing the cake is to not spread the frosting too much, because then you tear up the cake. Okay. What do you think? Okay, go get 2 forks and 2 cups of milk. Bye!
Just go.
Like that.
Like, so I'm icing this cake.
The key to icing a cake is to not spread the frosting too much, because then you tear up the cake.
Give it.
What?
Did you take it out for a drink?
I didn't.
Because it's tore up.
All tore up. Oh, we just lost a subscriber. Not gonna subscribe.